Imagine waking up in the dead of night to a soft knock at your door, 3 slow, deliberate taps echoing through the silence. You're frozen with fear as a shadowy figure stands just beyond the threshold, eyes empty, whispering your name. No one else sees her. No one else hears the chilling voice. What if the visitor is not alive? What if she's waiting for something, or someone? Tonight you'll hear a true story so unsettling, it will haunt your dreams. Before we dive in, make sure to follow and support this channel for more chilling true horror stories that you won't find anywhere else. Stay with us if you dare. Michael Reynolds wasn't the kind of man who spooked easily. He lived alone, worked late, and knew the rhythm of his quiet Portland neighborhood like the back of his hand. That's why, when he heard the first knock in the dead of night, he thought he was dreaming. 3 soft, evenly spaced knocks. Not loud. Not urgent. But something about them felt wrong. He sat up in bed, blinking into the darkness. The only light came from the standby glow of his TV and the digital clock on his nightstand. 3:17 a.m. He strained to hear again. The building was quiet, like it always was after midnight. No dogs barking, no pipes rattling, just the hum of silence. Then it came again. Knock. 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 Michael's chest tightened. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and stood slowly, his bare feet cold against the wooden floor. The knock hadn't sounded aggressive, but there was a strange rhythm to it. Like whoever was on the other side wasn't trying to get his attention, but already knew they had it. He walked to the door and looked through the peephole. Nothing. Just the dim hallway, lit by a flickering overhead bulb. No footsteps. No voices. No one running away or hiding behind the corners. He opened the door anyway. Just a crack. The hallway smelled faintly of bleach. The air was still. He stepped out and looked around. Empty. He closed the door, locked the deadbolt, and stood with his ear pressed to the wood. Silence. The next morning, groggy and unfocused, he chalked it up to a prank. Maybe a neighbor's guest had the wrong door. Still, something gnawed at the back of his mind. That knock. It had been too precise. Too soft. Like whoever was doing it wanted to be heard only by him. He didn't tell anyone about it. Not yet. Maybe if it happened again, he'd bring it up. He didn't have to wait long. The second night, it came again. Same time. Same sound. 3 soft knocks at 3:17 a.m. He stayed in bed, eyes wide open, heart hammering in his chest. He didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just listened. The knock came again. And this time, it was followed by something new. A whisper. So faint, he thought he imagined it. But he didn't. From the other side of the door, just barely audible, came a voice. Michael. The whisper at the door haunted Michael all day. He kept replaying it in his mind, soft, breathy, almost like a warning. But when he asked himself what it meant, there was only silence. That night, he was ready. Michael had ordered a cheap security camera online, one small enough to stick on the wall outside his door. It arrived just after dinner. He set it up quickly, aiming it down the narrow hallway. The screen showed a grainy, black and white view of the corridor. Nothing moved. As the clock ticked closer to 3:17 a.m., Michael sat on his couch, phone in hand, heart thudding with a mix of fear and curiosity. Exactly at 3:17, the knock came again. 3 soft taps. Michael's fingers trembled as he checked the camera's live feed. There she was. A pale woman, standing quietly in the hallway. She wore a long gray hoodie that hung loosely around her thin frame. Her hair was damp and tangled, falling over her face in dark strands. She didn't knock aggressively. She just stood there, looking straight at Michael's door. But the strangest thing was her eyes. They never shifted. They stared blankly forward, never once glancing at the camera. Michael blinked, leaning closer to the screen. She was barefoot. In the cold hallway. No one else was around. The building was supposed to be quiet this late. The woman raised her hand slowly, and the knocking began. Knock. 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 The taps echoed softly down the hallway. Then she turned her head slightly. Not toward the door. Not toward the camera. Just slightly, as if listening to something far behind her. And then she was gone. Michael rewound the footage again and again, watching the empty hallway flicker on the screen. He called the building manager first thing in the morning. No one had reported a visitor matching that description. No one knew who she was. And no one had seen a barefoot woman wandering the halls in a gray hoodie. Michael's unease grew. He wasn't sure if she was a stranger. Or something else. Michael couldn't shake the image of that pale woman from his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her standing silently in the hallway, her empty eyes staring past the door like she wasn't really there. He started asking around the building. At the small coffee shop downstairs, he mentioned the strange visitor to the barista. She looked up from the espresso machine, shaking her head. "I've never seen anyone like that," she said. "This building's quiet. People keep to themselves." Next, Michael talked to his neighbors. Old Mr. Jenkins from 306, a retired firefighter, scratched his head. "No, never seen her," he said. "And I've lived here for 10 years. Barefoot at night? That's just not right." Michael's worry deepened. He reached out to the building manager. The woman in charge was strict about tenant records and security. She pulled out the guest logs and tenant files. "No record of a woman matching that description," she said, flipping through papers. "No one with a gray hoodie, no barefoot visitors. We check IDs at the entrance. Nobody gets in without signing in." Michael asked if anyone had reported anything strange. "Nothing." The woman's gaze lingered on his face. "You're sure you saw her more than once?" Michael nodded, still uneasy. "She sounds like trouble," the manager said softly. "I'll review the security cameras from the hallways and entrances. Maybe we can figure out what's going on." Michael felt a chill creep down his spine. A barefoot woman, no record, no neighbors recognizing her, and she kept coming back to his door. Why him? And why at exactly 3:17 in the morning? That night, Michael tried to stay calm. He sat on his couch, the security camera feed open on his laptop, waiting for the clock to hit 3:17 a.m. Minutes crawled by like hours. Then, the knocking started again. 3 soft taps on the door. Michael's heart pounded so loudly he thought it would burst. He forced himself to look through the peephole. There she was. The pale woman in the gray hoodie. She stood perfectly still, her dark hair falling over her face. Then, a whisper drifted through the door, a voice so soft Michael almost didn't catch it. "Michael!" She said his name. The sound was like a breath, barely there. He froze, unable to move. "Michael!" The whisper came again, clearer this time. He stepped back from the door, his hands shaking. The woman didn't knock anymore. She just waited. Waiting for him to open. Michael swallowed hard and locked the door. He didn't sleep that night. The whisper echoed in his mind. The question was no longer who she was. It was why she knew his name. The next morning, Michael barely left his apartment. His mind raced with questions he couldn't answer. Around noon, his phone rang. The screen showed a disconnected number. Hesitant, he answered. A weak, trembling voice whispered on the other end. "She used to knock on my door, too. Don't open it." Michael's blood ran cold. "Who is this?" he asked, but the line went dead. His heart thudded as he stared at the blank screen. He decided to visit apartment 302, down the hall from his unit. No one lived there anymore. The door was locked, but the manager had a key. She handed it over with a warning. "Apartment 302 has been empty for over a year," she said. The tenant disappeared without a trace. Michael unlocked the door and stepped inside. The place was untouched, as if the occupant left in a hurry. On the floor lay a pair of worn sneakers, abandoned near the entrance. No sign of the woman in the gray hoodie. He noticed something else. A small, faded photograph on the kitchen table. It showed a woman, barefoot, wearing a gray hoodie. Her eyes were haunting, frozen in a sad, desperate stare. Michael's stomach churned. This was the woman who kept knocking. The woman who whispered his name. The woman no one could explain. Michael set up the security camera again, this time adding a microphone to capture sound. He was determined to catch everything. He left his apartment that night, staying with a friend across town. His phone was glued to his hand, watching the live feed. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the familiar soft knocks echoed through the hallway. Knock. 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 The pale woman appeared on the screen, standing silently in front of Michael's door. Her gray hoodie hung loosely, and her bare feet touched the cold floor. Then, she turned slowly toward the camera. Her dark eyes locked onto the lens as she whispered, "He left, but I'll wait." Her voice was hollow, chilling. Suddenly, she vanished. One moment she was there, the next, nothing. The hallway was empty. Michael stared at the screen, heart pounding. The woman's words echoed in his mind. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know what she wanted. But he knew one thing. She wasn't done. After that night, Michael's life slipped into uneasy silence. The knock stopped, but the feeling did not. At home, shadows seemed to stretch longer. The air felt colder, heavier. He often caught movement from the corner of his eye, nothing visible when he looked directly. One evening, while watching TV, his lights flickered. The screen went black for a moment before the power came back on. A soft tapping came from the door. He didn't move. The knocking was slower this time. Knock. 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 But no footsteps followed. Michael's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced down. It was an old photo of the pale woman, but this time her eyes were pitch black. Underneath, a single line. "I'm still here." Michael became restless. He started watching the hallway every night, hoping to catch a glimpse of the woman again. But the apartment was quiet, almost too quiet. One afternoon, as he grabbed his mail, a new neighbor moved in next door. A man named Daniel Harper. Friendly, with an easy smile and a calm voice. Michael mentioned the strange happenings, expecting a skeptical reaction. Instead, Daniel's smile faded. "I've heard stories," he said quietly, "about this building. About a woman who disappeared years ago. She lived in 302, right?" Michael nodded. "Some say she never left. That she waits for someone to answer the door." That night, Daniel offered to stay over. Michael agreed, grateful for company. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the knocking came again. But this time, Daniel was ready. The knocking echoed sharply through the hallway, 3 slow taps at exactly 3:17 a.m. Daniel stood silently beside Michael, his face pale but steady. Michael gripped the doorknob, fingers trembling. The door shook slightly, as if something was pushing against it from the other side. Then, a voice, low and urgent. "Michael, open up!" Daniel took a deep breath. "You have to stop this," he said firmly. The knocking stopped. For a moment, only silence. Then, a cold breeze swept through the hallway, chilling their skin. Without warning, the doors slammed shut with a deafening bang. Michael and Daniel stared at each other, breathless. The woman was gone. But the presence lingered, thick, heavy, impossible to ignore. The next morning, Michael decided he had to leave. The apartment felt wrong, like a place caught between worlds. He packed quickly, his hands still shaking from the night before. Daniel helped him carry boxes down the stairs. Before Michael left, he glanced back at the hallway, feeling a strange pull. On the wall near the elevator, written faintly in dust, were 3 letters, MIC. His own initials. Michael swallowed hard and stepped outside. The woman never knocked again. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind was just right, he could swear he heard soft tapping on his new apartment door.